I think it's rather safe to say that Season of the Deep was a tough season for a majority of Destiny players to get through. Outside of the first week of the season and maybe even the exotic quest week, many players found themselves using their time in a better way that didn't revolve around Destiny. And with Season 22 right around the corner, the hype that we typically see brewing by this point just isn't there. Today, I wanted to talk about what I believe we need to see in Season 22 for the community morale to skyrocket. So with that being said, I'm SniperKH, and let's get into the video. I want to begin with what exactly caused the Destiny community's morale to go downhill over the past few months. I did some thinking regarding it and I was able to pinpoint it down to 5 different things, with those things being the rampant server issues, what feels like the lack of passion for Destiny on Bungie's end, the poor reception of Lightfall from the community, new games that released during this season, and finally, the exposure of some shady business tactics that Bungie was beginning to implement. To dive into these problems deeper, let's open with the first of the issues being the rampant server issues. Now, before we go any further, I do want to give Bungie their props, as of the past 3 or 4 weeks, the servers have felt pretty stable, which has been refreshing to say the least. With that being said, the rampant server issues at the start of the season was putting a disgusting taste into the community's mouth, especially when the issues continue even after Bungie would begin to implement procedures to fix the servers. When Season of the Deep began back in May, the servers were seemingly going down every week, with some weeks seeing upwards to 4 separate days where the servers would have a period of time where they were down. Needless to say, this was giving Bungie a terrible look, especially as the community would begin to fear for the future of the game with the final shape coming soon. However, this would only be the first of 5 things that would lead the community's low morale. The second of which comes in with what felt like a lack of passion for Destiny from Bungie's end. Now, before I continue going on, I do want to clarify what I mean by the feeling of a lack of passion. I don't want it to seem like Bungie has no passion or has given up on Destiny by any means, as I do believe that there are some devs that work on Destiny 2 that have serious passion towards the game. With that being said, that passion just wasn't felt this season at all. Season of the Deep for the most part felt rather soulless, and maybe other factors could have led to this feeling, but I find it hard to believe. The only activities I found moderately interesting from this season were Deep Dives, the Wicked Implement Secret Mission, and Ghost of the Deep. But the problem is that 2 of those 3 activities are ones that a fair portion of the community will only do if it's attached to the weekly story quest or if it's for an exotic, and regarding the other activities we got, they just didn't bring enough to the table to warrant additional playtime from players. With the story being cool for the first playthrough, but unnecessary to rerun unless you're a lore nerd, or Salvage, which is probably one of the most boring seasonal 6-man activities we have ever gotten, which only added fuel to the argument being made here. I don't want to add additional fuel by stating how I feel, but I will say that Season of the Deep didn't bring much invigorating life to the game. The third thing was the lasting effects from the poor reception of Lightfall. Now look, I think everyone kinda knows how a vast majority of the community felt about Lightfall. While there are some souls out there, including myself, who think Lightfall was a genuinely good expansion, there are more that would argue the opposite, and that feeling of disappointment would be brought into this new season and would only be reinforced. With Season of the Deep having to continue 2 separate stories on its own, whilst also delivering content that seemed to be part of Lightfall, it was sadly doomed to fail from the start. The fourth point is the release of other games throughout the season. Now look, I think we can all agree that it is healthy for gamers to have a multitude of games they can sink their teeth into whenever they are feeling bored with one game, and hey, I totally agree. And I will say that for Bungie, they witnessed the creation of a perfect storm for another looter RPG game to come in for. That looter RPG game I am talking about is none other than Diablo 4. Now yes, we've all heard about this game at this point, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but with the drop in morale, this was the perfect opportunity for Diablo to swoop in, and swoop in it did. It took the Destiny community by storm with some of the bigger names in the community hopping onto the Diablo train. Hell, I know that some of my friends and I hopped onto this train because it was the perfect opportunity to get away from a game that wasn't really doing much. And with that, we're on to the final topic that there is to talk about, which is the exposure of Bungie's shady business tactics. And yes, I am referring to the Astacross microtransaction video, which by the way, if you haven't seen it, then go watch it in the description below. Even if you are a Bungie defender through and through, I ask that you put your bias aside and just give it a chance because it says a lot. But to explain why exactly I am mentioning it, it brought a damning light regarding Destiny to not only its community, but also to the gaming community in general, which was definitely not a good look and served as a massive L for Destiny. So, now that that's all laid out, What does Season 22 need to bring Destiny 2 back? Well, it needs to bring wins. And I'm not talking about one win, I'm talking about multiple. We know from the State of the Game article from before Lightfall that Season 22 will be the first season that will bring along some additional experimentation that we have been so desperately needing. And I will say that that does get me excited and hopeful, as we have seen Bungie's experimenting very recently with that of deep dives, which is an amazing activity. However, Bungie needs to do more than just one win for an activity to bring that community back. We need Bungie to make Season 22 a genuinely great season. What exactly I'm hoping for is just some fresh ideas. Even if some of them fall flat on their face, I'd be happy to see Bungie trying new shit rather than the same bland seasonal activity for the 80th time. It's also worth noting that this script is being written before the State of the Game article that is dropping on August 3rd, so who knows, maybe that article started the W train for Bungie, or maybe it continued the L train. Regardless, if there's one mindset you should walk away with once you've clicked off this video, it's the following. It's perfectly okay to be disappointed with the recent content in Destiny, but be cautiously optimistic for what Bungie has in store for the future. Even though I have spent the majority of this video talking shit about Destiny and Bungie, there's one thing to remember. Bungie has been in this situation before where the community morale is at an all-time low, and they know how to help that. So before you go on to believe that Destiny has entered its grave, let's let Bungie have some opportunities to experiment as we go towards the final shape. And if Bungie does something that you're not in favor of, it's okay, because it might not be a new ideology Bungie follows through with. Anyways, that'll do it for today's video. I know this video is pretty different from what I typically upload, and trust me when I say I don't like uploading videos with a negative connotation associated with it, but fuck it, I felt this is needed to be said. Again. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping weekly. Be sure to stop by my streams that happen right here on YouTube, as I've been streaming more and would love to see you all stop by. Finally, be sure to check out my other social media platforms linked in the description below for updates on future content and for additional content on my other platforms. With that being said, I'm SniperKH and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.